Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Ali, reporting for Shinhua News Agency from Syria. Welcome to this broadcast. Today we're going to the southern province of Daraa. Daraa is not only another Syrian city that we're visiting, but it's the focus of the recent battles between the Syrian army and an array of rebel groups there, including ultra-radical ones. Now we have arrived to the countryside of Daraa. This is a city called Isra, which is in the countryside. Now this is the first area that we enter here in Daraa. So the battles have been raging in Daraa in general over the past 2 weeks, and the Syrian army has already captured over 58% of this area through the military operations and also the reconciliation deals which have been reached recently in some towns in Daraa actually. So this is our first visit to this city after 7 years of war, because entering it was dangerous, and the rebels were in control of several areas around the city. So today we are going to enter this city for the first time. So we are taking you with us today to see how things are going inside. So we are on the way. So stay tuned with us. We will come back to you when we get there. Welcome back, everyone, and we are now in the town of Isra, which is one of the areas that has remained under the government control throughout the Syrian war. We are now actually in a military base. We have here various munitions and weapons which were actually confiscated by the Syrian army throughout the battles with the rebels in Daraa. We can see various stuff here, RPGs, the rocket launchers, and also tanks, mortar launchers as well. So all of these weapons have been recently confiscated by the Syrian army during the battles with the rebels. All of them were taken by the army throughout these battles that have been taking place since 2 weeks ago in the Daraa. So here we have a military officer with us. He will be telling us more about the confiscated weapons and the manufacturers of these weapons, as some of them are Western made. يعطيك العافية سيادة العقيد. ممكن تشرح لنا شوي عن الأسلحة الموجودة هون اللي تم مصادرتها مؤخرا؟
طبعا بالمعارك الأخيرة اللي تمت بيننا وبين المسلحين، تم دحر المسلحين من قبل الجيش العربي السوري في منطقة علمة والغاري والصورة، بالإضافة لمليحة العطش.
So he's speaking about the towns that have been recently captured and from which those weapons were brought. About 4 or 5 towns that the army found these weapons inside. فينا نشوفه.
تم اغتنام عدد من الأسلحة الأمريكية الصنع بالإضافة للأسلحة الغربية الصنع المتنوعة.
So he said assorted weaponry, including Western-made and US-made weapons, were taken throughout the battles with the rebels in Daraa.
نلاحظ إنه عندنا هون قواعد إطلاق صواريخ تاو أمريكية الصنع.
So he said that this is a US-made rocket launchers called Tau. This is an anti-tank rocket launchers. So it's used against tanks. So هي صناعة أمريكية
الصنع حصريا.
هي تمام. So he said that this is a US made rocket launcher, anti-tank rocket launcher. We can see here also the details of this launcher. There's also B9, also anti-tank rocket launcher, which the officer said it's a Western-made
مما يدل
weapon.
على الدعم الغربي المستمر للمجموعات الإرهابية المسلحة وتم
He
كمان
said that
غنمنا.
these weapons are actually an indication of the Western support for the ultra-radical rebel groups. And what he
طبعا
said, those were terrorists that the army was fighting here in Daraa, including militants with the Nusra Front and other like-minded groups.
هون بنلاحظ راجمي محلية الصنع تم صنعها من قبل المسلحين بالإضافة لصبطانات بديلة.
So this is like
مع ذخيرة لها.
It's like a homemade rocket launcher made by the rebels, manufactured by the rebels manually here in Daraa.
إضافة هون عندنا مدافع 122 ملم سالب 30.
هي ضد شو؟
هي بترمي ضد المشاة ضد المدرعات ضد كل شيء. مدافع ميدان.
So these are anti-infantry troops, artillery. هي شغل وين؟
هي هدول من قبل القطاعات تبعنا مستولين عليها فتم استردادها.
So those were actually also confiscated by the army from the rebels. And he said that the rebels had initially taken these from the army from previous battles, but now the army took them back. This is mortar launchers. These are mortar launchers.
وتدمير التحصينات المعادية ولدعم المشاة المتقدمين وهذا هاون 82 فهذه الهاونات منها غربية ومنها شرقية وهذا هاون 82 ملم هذا هاون 60 هدول الهاونات غربيات
هي اللي كانوا يضربوا فيها على المدينة أو كذا
كانوا يستخدمونها ضد القوات السورية وضد المدنيين الأبرياء.
So those mortar launchers were used to target residential areas and also military positions here in Daraa, and we have seen several of these type of weapons and mortar launchers in other parts of Syria. The rebels actually use those mortar launchers a lot in their battles.
هذه قذائف هاون 60 في عندنا قذائف 82 في عندنا قذائف.
All of those are mortar rounds, different sizes and different capacities.
متنوعة. غربية الصنع كلياتها وهذا ما يدل على الدعم الأمريكي اللامحدود للمجموعات الإرهابية.
He said all of this indicates and suggests that the Western powers are supporting the rebels in Syria without a limit.
وهذه الأسلحة والذخيرة تكذب ادعاءاتهم فهي أمامكم.
So he said that those weapons are in front of you. It's an indication of the Western support to the rebels in Syria. حضرتك قلت قبل شوي إنه هدول مو كل شيء أنتوا هي جزء.
عرضنا جزء فقط جزء من كل نوع من أنواع الأسلحة لنوريه للعالم لنوريه لشعبنا كيف كانوا يستخدموا هذه الأسلحة وكيف هذا الدعم والإمداد للإرهابيين. فما نعرض لك جزء والجزء الآخر أخذناه حطيناه بالمستودعات.
So he said that the army unit here only showcased part of the confiscated weapons, not all of it, just to give an example about the various types of weapons that have been used in the battles here in Daraa.
ونحن وأبطال الجيش العربي السوري مصممون على سحق الإرهابيين في كافة المناطق واسترجاع أرضنا بالكامل.
He said that the Syrian army is so determined to eradicate the terrorist groups from all of Syrian areas.
ونهدي هذا النصر لشعبنا الحبيب ولقائدنا.
And he said that they are dedicating this victory to the Syrian people and the Syrian president. طيب شكرا لك سيادة العقيد شكرا لك يعطيك ألف عافية. So as we can see, all of these munition boxes are put on the ground here. The rocket launchers, mortar launchers, tanks over there. So as we have said, the army brought these munitions and weapons here after gaining them, after confiscating them throughout the battles with the rebels in the countryside of Daraa. Of course, these are different than the ones that were voluntarily surrendered by the rebels. These were actually taken during the battles after the defeat of rebels in several areas in Daraa. We can see here also a pickup truck outfitted um, with machine guns and artillery, all different kinds. Those are tanks as well that were taken from the rebels, from various rebels actually, including the ultra-radical ones such as the Al-Qaeda linked Nusra Front. So this is a paper here reading that those are some military gears that were taken by the Syrian armed forces from the terrorist groups, as this paper reads, from the towns of Mleha, Al-Atash, Alma, Sura, and Western Gharia. Those are the towns that were also recently taken by the army. We're taking a look at this. It's actually, I don't know from which group it's taken, but there's a flag here also. It's from a rebel group called Muhajirin wal Ansar. This is the name of the rebel group. So this is their flag, and it's kept on this tank so that it is easier to identify which group has which weapons. So several tanks, as we can see here. For those who are joining us right now, we say again that we are now in a military base in the town of Isra, where the army has brought in weapons. It confiscated throughout the battles with various rebel groups. So this is another, maybe it's a mortar launcher or a rocket launcher. It is also reading the same. It has the names of the towns that have recently been captured by the army. So here now we're taking a look at what kind of weapons those rebels have used over the past 7 years of war in Syria. This is only how to say sneak peek of how of the weapons that they possess here in Syria. Of course, they have more than that, but these are the ones that have recently been captured. So also these are some maybe oxygen battles and also stretchers. This is actually maybe for their field hospitals that they use to treat their wounded militants. There we have helmets. We can see also some brand new stuff in their boxes that have not yet been used, some of them. So all of these were taken during the past couple of weeks since the military operation in Daraa started between the army and various rebel groups, as we have mentioned, including ultra-radical ones such as Al-Qaeda linked to Nusra Front, and also some rebels allied with the Islamic State group. We see all these helmets are laid down here. We can also see some minesweepers, those who also were confiscated. Those are advanced gears, actually. This is used to discover mines, minesweepers. So this is anti-tank and anti-aircraft. So this is only a few of the stuff that the rebels use. Actually, we saw the variety of the weapons that they have used and they have been using in the Syrian conflict, and including here in Daraa, which is a very important area because Daraa is the birthplace of the Syrian war. The spark of the Syrian war was ignited here in Daraa. So here we are. This is a military base. This is the weapons that have been confiscated from the rebels. This battle is ongoing actually, and we are just at one stop of this area to see these weapons, and we will be moving forward to see other areas that have been taken by the army and see how things are going. As we said, this is an ongoing battle. The army has captured several areas through military operations and also through reconciliation deals. We will be talking more about these reconciliation deals in another area when we get there. Welcome back, and this is the town of Gharia al-Sharqiyya, which means the eastern part of the town of Gharia in the eastern countryside of Daraa. This town is actually two parts, the eastern part and the western part. During the recent military operation in Daraa, the Syrian army captured the western part of Gharia, but the eastern part here, the people actually accepted to reconcile with the government, and the army entered here without any battles, as the people have welcomed the army. And as we can see behind us, we see a rally of people chanting for the Syrian army and chanting for the government after being under the rebel control for a long time. So as we inch closer to the square here, we can see a man holding a Syrian flag, and there's also a portrait of President Bashar Assad. We see people waving Syrian flags and posters of Assad here in the eastern part of the town of Gharia. So as we said, this town is actually two parts, the eastern one and the western one. The western one was captured by the army through a military offensive, but the eastern part here, the people chose to reconcile with the government and welcome the Syrian army after being under the rebel control for a long time. We can see the people here are preparing to celebrate. Big crowds of people are here. So here we see the small children, young men, all of them are gathering here in this celebration. Actually, the army entered this area a few days ago because the entire military operation that have started in Daraa province started nearly 2 weeks ago, during which the army captured areas by force from the rebels who rejected to reconcile, rejected the government's offer to reconcile and go back to normal life, while other towns have chosen to welcome the Syrian army and the Syrian government institutions without any battles. We can see soldiers on top of buildings. People are now chanting for Syria. They say God, Syria, and Bashar only. So now we are here in the eastern part of town of Daria, and we're watching how people are preparing to celebrate the entry of the Syrian army, which entered this part of the town without a fight, as the people here welcomed the army and accepted to reconcile. The reconciliation actually means that the rebels who accept the deal will have to surrender their weapons and abandon the insurgency in exchange for a pardon. Actually, the Syrian government has offered for a long time for those who abandon the insurgency and hand over their weapons. So as we can see, this town has been liberated technically without a fight. People accepted to reconcile and the rebels surrendered their weapons here.
unlike the western part of this town where the army actually took it by force as the rebels there rejected to reconcile. The distance between the eastern part and the western part is a few kilometers only. So we can see also people here attending this small ceremony where the governor of Daraa is expected to give a speech. يعطيك العافية. كيفك؟ أنت من هون؟ كيف احكي لي كيف هلا حاسين بعد ما الجيش فات؟
امان واحسن من هيك ما في. الله خلينا الجيش يا رب يا سيدي محمد. والله كنا عايشين بموت برعب.
He said that during the rebels' times they were living in fear and horror, but now after the entry of the Syrian army to this town, they are feeling safe after a long time of being under the control of the rebels.
كانوا خايفين وهلا مبسطين بيلعبوا الشوارع بيلعبوا طابه بيروحوا بيجوا ومكيفين.
He said that his children used to be afraid of going on this out to the streets and play, but now everything has changed after the Syrian army entered this area and the rebels are completely out.
الله يخلينا القائد بشار الاسد وقوات الجيش اللي حررتنا من جزء الارهاب.
So he is also hailing the Syrian army and President Assad for what he said, liberating them from the control of the rebels, including ultra-radical ones. Actually, they are the rebels here are. There are plenty of factions here, including Al-Qaeda-linked militants and also others with the Islamic State. So we are now, as we have mentioned before, in the eastern part of the town of Garia, in the eastern countryside of Daraa. As we said, this part witnessed a reconciliation between the Syrian army and the people here, and as well as the rebels who are here. We can see the people are gathering in this square to welcome the army which entered this area a few days ago as part of the military operation that has been going on for nearly 2 weeks. The army entered this through a reconciliation deal with the people, while the western part of this town was taken by force because the rebels there refused to the offer to reconcile with the government. This is Daraa, the birthplace of the Syrian war, the spark that ignited the Syrian war from this place in Daraa province. Of course, the Syrian army is now advancing in this area, capturing 58% of Daraa province. Of course, now the military operation is ongoing against the rebels who refuse to reconcile. So this is Daraa, part of the southern front, where the military operations are ongoing now. This is an important part of the Syrian war, or in the efforts of restoring the country back together, because this has been outside the government control for a very, very long time. And while we were here in this area, we have seen also some boxes of food stuff actually sent to the rebels, and also there were some Western slogans on them. They were sent to the rebels to support them in their insurgency against the government. But now the government, with the help of Russia and other allied forces, are regaining control, are taking back the country piece by piece, and they have achieved a lot after 7 years of war. So this is one of the stops of the Syrian war. It's a very important place, and this is part of restoring Syria in general.